If I said, have you seen one of these? And you go, yeah. Well, what do you mean? Like a Zoom call? You've seen one of those before?
Well, no, I did see one of these.
Okay.
And what I liked the most was the strange perspectives of the things happening behind you.
Oh, interesting.
It feels a little bit like a video game. Like I was playing like Borderlands 2 and got an interview from a skag like creature named America's Sweetheart Brian.
That's good. That sounds complimentary. Am I wrong about that? Well, let's not dive too deep into that because we have an hour together. We have an hour together. So let me introduce. Hey, welcome, America. This is Unscripted. Let me tell you what we do here, like you haven't seen it before. We try to educate and entertain by covering the news stories of the day and getting our weird perspectives on them. Then what we do is we interview the very best and brightest that LinkedIn has to offer. Today's guest is Ricard Resnick. He is the CEO of the Pacific Ocean. Richard, the whole thing. Wow. That's a big responsibility, the whole Ocean Institute. It doesn't matter. Thanks for being here.
It's been so long since I've had the chance to be in the same virtual room as you.
Or the same real room.
I can't believe how smart you are. It's really a pleasure. I specifically like the superhero comics that back us up, and I hope you like my background. I chose it specifically for you.
It's very good. As far as virtual backgrounds go, it's very mountainy, and you know what white people love is skiing. So it's very on brand. Like mayonnaise, hiking, sea salt, and skiing. Disney.
The truth is, like, this is the way I usually am, and so I just needed to
get your mind right. Okay, listen. Before we get to the news, though, I know you've watched every single one of my episodes. What we do is, I don't know if you know this about the United States, every day is a day, some reason to celebrate. It's not always Christmas or Hanukkah, as your people, or Easter or Thanksgiving. Some day it's roasted nut day. Some days it's cupcake day. Today, I think this fits in. I think this was serendipitous. I think it's apropos, which is a word. This is National Absurdity Day.
I'm so pleased. I'm so pleased to see this. There's no blue sky link there, though. I don't know what that X one is in the middle.
I don't know what that is either. Let's pretend it doesn't exist. Okay, let me ask you this. I think some of your answers to what we're going to talk about later are your favorite musical bands, movies, and books. I think there is some absurdity within this. There is, right?
Right.
Are you an absurdist in the existentialist sense, like in the Kierkegaardian way, would you say?
I think my absurdity is far more sort of base level than that, right?
Oh, okay. Sure.
I think, for instance, that every fart is funny. Right? Because you could not think that, but you're still going to have them, and then you're just wasting joy. So for me, it's a far simpler kind of absurdity. Also, my brain is mushy, and that's due to 50 years of just using it to try to do things. And so I don't really rise above 4-year-old absurdity now. But I am pleased to know, and thank you for advising me and your large audience, that today is National Absurdity Day, because it changes my whole approach to the afternoon.
As it very well should. Speaking of farts, Montaigne, I don't know how much philosophy you read, but he thought farts were very funny. Kierkegaard said once he observed that the world was absurd, he never stopped laughing. And although the Buddhists will say that there's no absolute truths, there is one, and that's that farts are funny. Also, getting hit in the crotch is funny. Falling down is funny. There are certain things that are just funny. And I don't think you can argue with those things.
I won't try here.
You shouldn't. This isn't the forum for it. Camus also said a lot of the absurdity comes from the human pull towards meaning in a meaningless universe. And I think that's true.
I kind of agree with that as well. Listen, if you don't mind, I'm just going to go take a quick philosophy class. One second.
Okay, hold on.
Okay, so, right. Okay, here we are. It really is. It all gets back to the myth of Sisyphus, doesn't it?
Look what I have written down right here. The myth of Sisyphus. So the whole idea of Sisyphus is the idea that he is exhausted by the idea of pushing the hill up the thing, or the boulder uphill and falls down. That's not, you have to just go, shit, this is what I do. I push rocks up hills and they fall down again. As long as you're not tied to the inherent meaningfulness of pushing the rock up and having it fall down, then there's no problem. The problem comes, you're like, oh, why is God doing this to me? You know, you're like, why is this my, it is because there's nothing behind it. And that's our life. We wake up, we push the fucking rock up the hill, we go to bed, it falls back down.
But didn't he sort of end up saying that, like, look, there's only a few approaches to absurdity. Like, once you recognize the absurdity, it exists. It is our life. That A, you can kill yourself. Like, that's an escape. B, you can just commit philosophical suicide, right? Like, you sort of just deny its existence. Or 3, you can just accept it. And yes, this exists, but, you know, why not just live authentically anyway?
I think that's what you should do. And I think living authentically, like, plays into that whole, you know, God is dead thing. Because, okay, if you're religious, God assigns meaning, right? But if you decide that that's not the case, and essentially you kill God, then what you do is assign meaning, and then you are God. And then that's like a better way to live, I think, because that's authentic living.
I totally agree with that.
Oh my God.
Except for the part where you kill God, because you can't kill something that never really was.
I think it's killing him philosophically, not like, you're like, I just don't believe that I shouldn't eat shellfish or wear clothes or not wear clothes woven of 2 different materials. You're like, these rules don't make sense.
No, they don't. And shellfish are delicious.
Oh my God, they're so good. You know what's good? Cocktail sauce. Oh, what would you put that on if not for shrimp?
I can't say that I have a better answer. I don't know the answer.
Because there isn't a better answer. Also, it uses horseradish, which is very underutilized in modern American cuisine.
I just made a horseradish dip like 2 days ago.
Oh, did you?
No.
one what?
It's good dip, but no one was like, ugh, gross, horseradish. It was,
horseradish is incredible. I went to a hot sauce place recently, and they have what they call napalm horseradish. Have you ever had this thing? Oh my God.
I don't want that ever.
No, it hurts so bad. It hurts, and then you swallow and it goes away, which is, I guess, the truth in a lot of things. But this was just, I'll send you some. It's great. All right.
What's the last time that you and I talked? You were trying to write my book for me.
Yeah, and then you know what's funny about you? It bothers me because I like making fun of you. It fills my soul. But you're so smart and you're so ahead. Like, you were right. You're right. Like the genomics thing didn't take off the way like it seemed like it was going to. I thought it was going to be a diagnostics tool. I thought it was just going to CRISPR the shit out of me when I had something wrong. No, it didn't happen.
Nothing. I'm a moron. But like, I could see back in 2015, 4 or 5 years after I gave that TED talk, that like, nah, it's just, it turns out biology is more complicated than that. Like, there are these instruction sets, but then there's like, it's like such a mix of things that are going on there. And then, you know, so I'm not at all displeased by that. I like the fact that we're a little less deterministic than one might think just by reading your genome. And I really wish you could have pulled that book off, because I couldn't. I mean, it's really hard to write a book that anyone cares about on genomics in a way that's kind of funny. And I figured if anybody could do it, it would be you on National Absurdity Day. But
we were close, and I got to tell you, a lot of my research. Where the fuck is? Oh, so I read Evolving Ourselves. Did you tell me to read that? I'm not sure, but that I quote. Do you know that book? You probably did. I reference that all the fucking time. So if nothing else, I got a lot of talking points that make me kind of sound smart sometimes. But I'm not saying you were moron. You sniffed out, like, you were all excited about the technology in the beginning, like a lot of people, and then you sniffed out like, this isn't gonna. It's too complicated, or it's gonna take too long, or I mean, you ahead of the curve.
The one time I was right about something, so I'll take it, and I will.
Yeah, you just take it. You just have to do whatever you want with it. All right, we're gonna cover the headlines, and I think some of these are good because you're a learned man, right? Okay, this is from the Wall Street Journal. It's welcome back, polio. We missed you. So this is a long form article that I think everybody should read. I'm not going to bore everybody with everything, but it's how science lost America's trust and surrendered health policy to skeptics. I swear to God, having to hear this guy talk for the next 4 years is worse than polio. So the premise is that the rise of RFK Jr. from fringe figure to the prospective head of U.S. health policy was fueled by skepticism and distrust of the medical establishment, views that went viral after the COVID-19 pandemic. They were once dismissed about their controversial beliefs about medicine, but now they're being embraced. There's lingering resentment over how the pandemic was handled. Then he goes on to say something that is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard any human say, which is his bottom quote. He said this on a podcast. We were all told in COVID, trust the experts, but that's not a thing. Kennedy said in the episode of What is Money podcast in April, trusting the experts is not a feature of science. It's the opposite of science. It is not a feature of democracy. That is fundamentally and categorically untrue. We trust the experts all the time. If we get into a car accident, we don't go, hey, what's in that vial? Is that those sutures the right way? If you take your car to get fixed, like, well, are you turning that shit? You get on a plane, you don't go, hey, how's 30,000 feet today? Better than 29,000, right? We trust the experts all the goddamn time. But there seems to be this idea that when you talk about science, it's a perfect thing. It's not. We learned, and we learned very quick. So what's your take on this guy being in charge of public health now?
Well, experts say it's a bad idea, and I trust the experts. Look, the thing is this whole notion of like, hey, let us not trust the experts. They have led us astray. You can lead right to like Dr. Fauci's door, who did as good of a job as any man could or woman given the circumstances that were presented. The underlying notion is that each one of us should be expert at all things, that every one of us needs to understand exactly how everything comes together. And we sort of gave that up when we started to grow things. I don't know, was that like 40,000 years ago, something like that? That was the moment that we climbed down from the trees and said, we're going to specialize in things because I can't be good at everything. And that is the only thing. Only thing that has created the civilization that we know right now. So that we want to not trust the experts. That's really just it's a ploy to have you look in a different direction so that power can be agglomerated. And it's going to cost a lot of lives. People are going to get really hurt if this man is allowed to make these sorts of decisions. It's going to really impact public health, which, by the way, is something that they really just want to deconstruct. They just don't, public health is not worthy of investment. And I refer you now to the Black Plague. I refer you now to the AIDS crisis. This is absolute nuttiness. And I'm sad about this. I don't know how to fight it. And I think a lot of people like me feel that way. I wish it weren't this way. But what can we do? Heck, I even find myself now where you're making jokes about my tribe, which, as you know, I'm an atheist. I'm not sure which is worse right now in this country to be an atheist or a Jew. But I even find now wishing that you didn't say that so that I won't be targeted. I mean, literally, man, that's kind of where a lot of us are. So now I'm going to fight against Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s ridiculous policies to dismantle public health. I don't know. I mean,
you're definitely going to get murdered. Here's the thing. Okay, I think the water is a little muddied. I'll give their side a little bit of credence only because of these things. So if you look at the numbers in the upper right-hand corner, we spend more money on pharmaceutical drugs and we consume more pharmaceutical drugs than anybody else on the planet. Therefore, you would think certainly our babies are living and we're living a long time and we're generally healthy. None of these things are true.
Right, but the reason we spend all that money, just so that I can make the point, then we can move on to the next one. The reason why we spend all that money is because of the pharmacy benefit manager lobby in Congress. We've created a middleman, and it's only here, and that's what blows up all these expenses. These drugs are not as expensive as we pay for, and guess who's making money? The corporations that are lobbying these senators who are going to approve these kinds of appointments. So it doesn't have to be like this. I understand. Yes, you're right. I understand where the sort of the oxygen to fan that flame comes from. But like everything, you can say, well, all right, well, that's one side or the other side. That's not a culture war that did it. That's literally a capitalist lobby that's causing you to pay more for things that you shouldn't.
This is why I think you need to throw the baby out with the bathwater when it comes to our government, which I know is a crazy thing to say, but as soon as lobbying entered, it's done. So the pharmaceutical companies made $684 billion last year. So what we're going to do, given our current system, is go, hey, listen, guys, could you stop lobbying and stop getting bills passed that allow you to fucking rake in this much money? And they're going to go, you know what? For the altruistic pulled towards just society in general, I will give up $684 billion. It'll never happen in a million years. And listen, I've read Bad Pharma. I've read Selling Sickness. I've read Bad Science. They are bad people that do horrible things. Bayer knowingly sold AIDS-tainted blood to South America. They still rake in $51.9 billion last year. So it's like such a fundamentally broken system that it can understand the anger and rage and how you want to throw this baby out with the bathwater. But then you look at the vaccines and what they've eradicated: measles, mumps, rubella, smallpox, diphtheria, and polio. Do we want any of that out? No, but it's like, it's such an A-B situation. It's conceptually bizarre, and it's going to fuck us all.
With you. Not much more to say about it except this. Vaccines, for instance, great example of a really strong public health policy. There's really, really good research that shows that particularly the COVID-19 vaccines are having a statistically significant increase in these weird immunological diseases that can result in a very small number of people. I'm one of them. I went into kidney failure last year because of 3 vaccines that I got all at the same time.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was terrible. I understand why that happened. I'm still glad I got the vaccines.
Right.
And guess what? It's not like these vaccines are causing this sort of thing for everybody. It's a tiny fraction of a fraction of a fraction. Statistical significance, something that most people don't understand because they're not experts, and they don't have to be. But statistical significance for a small change can be meaningful if there's enough power behind it. And that's what's going on. I still support this stuff. What's going on generally is we're grabbing onto a fact or two that you can actually source. Yeah, this really did happen. That really did happen. And then we enter into these bubbles where that's the reason why the whole thing has to be taken down, why it's all corrupt. I'll give you one other thought, which is like, you talked about Bayer, you talked about all these pharma companies that are making a ton of money. There are at times some nefarious intentions by certain commercial leaders in those organizations. But the vast majority of the humans that work there, they went there because they wanted to cure disease. And that's still trying to work on, And so like even vilifying these guys this is just the sort of thing. It's nuanced policy that requires educated people, skilled in the art, that understand all the sides and that can come up with a just solution. And while we have populism, pointing fingers, and driving policy, bad things are going to happen to everybody.
It's the absurd nature of the human condition too, because every industry has breakage, but how we respond to breakage is very conceptually bizarre. Lawn darts, for example, I think killed 1 kid and then they were outlawed. Happy hour is out, and that's a part of the next story. Happy hour isn't a thing in Massachusetts because one 20-year-old one night died in a car accident, drug trafficking. That's awful. Don't get me wrong, but 30,000 people are killed by guns every year, and everyone's like, well, we can't do anything about that. So it's just like, in this, the same thing. Yes, COVID vaccinations and vaccinations in general do have negative outcomes in some cases. So does everything. Like, we're all upset about Boeing right now. Statistically speaking, Boeing kills 0 people every year. 0, and they have for the last 30 years. You know what kills more people than Boeing? Cows, fucking bees. Lawnmowers kill 50 people a year. Vending machines kill 2. Boeing kills 0, but 1 door blows off, and yes, that's bad. But like, you've got to think about breakage in any industry. Peanut butter kills kids. Oh my God.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm with you. I'll say something a little bit controversial, and I say it with full recognition. If you were one of the 5,000 some odd people who died, or a family member of one of those people who died in the 9/11 attacks, that is the biggest tragedy that could ever happen. And it was horrifying because it's like freaking planes. Like you can just put yourself in the middle of that. But 5,000 people, some odd, maybe it was 6, something like that. That is such a small number compared to smoking, compared to guns, compared to violence in schools, compared to and what happened for that was, for 20 years, we had to get naked before we board a plane, right? I mean, it's starting to back off a little bit, but like we do have these massive overreactions because of the peer pressure. And by the way, this is the same thing that causes the sort of the peer pressure among parents that causes helicopter parenting. Well, like, they're putting their kid in a helmet. I'm not going to be the last kid on the block that doesn't leash the kid, And so
1,000%.
It's just, these are the sorts of things where there's a force, there's a pressure, and it's one directional towards just too much control, too much sponsorship of the thing to watch, right? And so being measured is really hard, particularly when there's a populist voice that's yelling at you and it's calling names and ad hominem attacks. It's just like a tricky situation to be in. I wish we weren't doing this right now. I hate this meeting. This stinks. Can I go back to work? I feel so
talk about it. This is fun. Why? You don't like, being intellectually curious about our fellow human beings? This is the Jaws thing. When Jaws came out, everybody just thought sharks were big fish with teeth. Nobody really gave a fuck. Then, oh shit, they eat. So today, Sharks kill about 70 people a year. You know how many sharks humans kill? About 100 million. Why?
Yeah.
Because it's sexy. It's like kidnapping. Everyone's afraid of kidnapping. Nobody kidnaps kids. They go, yes, they do. Sex trafficking. Look it up. Nobody wants your kid. I don't want to watch my own kids. Let alone fucking kidnapping. That's the worst of all the crimes. You could be getting money out of something and commit a crime. You're going to get a kid. Stop it.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to TGI Fridays. This is a couple weeks old, but the Wall Street Journal just did a video about it, so I felt compelled. So goodbye, TGI Fridays. Don't let the door hit you on the appetizers on the way out.
Right.
So this is another related to COVID-19. They say largely their financial struggles have been a result of the pandemic when they couldn't open their doors and serve this horrible food. What I did learn, though, is that TGI Fridays started in 1965 by a guy in Manhattan who borrowed $5,000 from his mother because he wanted to open a restaurant where he could meet flight attendants. And that is good old-fashioned American ingenuity. I like that about that.
Sure.
Then what they did is they became a place to hook up. So it was like a happy hour place. It's where singles went. And then there was Flair. And then they did silly things with the shakers. They trained Tom Cruise for Cocktail. I knew nothing about this TGI Fridays because in the 80s they decided to go after families, and that's where everything went in the shitter.
Right. You missed the one that would have really fit you well.
I missed the heyday of TGI Fridays. And here's the thing. I don't know that I've even been to a Fridays, but I can just tell exactly what every one of these dishes tastes like. I know that the drinks are going to be watered down. They're going to have way too much sour mix. Like, I don't like fast casual. I think if I'm there, I feel superior to everybody else. And I don't like what it says about me when I go into these places. And I don't particularly like this about me, that I'm so judgmental. But it says in here that Red Lobster's going under. Fridays is going under. I mean, to me, good. It's trash. How do you feel
Red Lobsters hold a special place in my heart because of college. I really did a lot of damage to my future self.
College is fine. Anything goes in college. Like I did a lot of keg stands, drink a lot of Bud Light. College is fine. But if you're 38 and you're going out for 5-drink special appetizers, you know what I mean? I don't know. What is
that's the thing about TGI Fridays. It's like I think I might have eaten there once or twice in my 20s, and like they serve terrible food. Now the only thing that's being served there is like poetic justice.
Oh shit! You think so? They got what they came for. Yeah, it's I would love to pay $5 for a drink, but I just know it's going to be terrible. This is the kind of place where you go and you order a bourbon on the rocks and they put a lime in it. Like, what are you doing?
Exactly.
You don't put a lime in everything. I know you're making $2 an hour, but for Christ's sakes.
Yeah, I mean, the sad news is, I guess every day is a Monday now.
Yeah, that is too bad. What a dumb name for a place too. And like, the microwaved food. I know you're just reheating frozen soups, and it's just the pedanticness of the menu. Like nothing special. That appetizer, this sampler here, it's mozzarella sticks, it's loaded potato skins, it's chicken wings or fingers. It's gonna be good, but you're gonna feel like absolute shit afterwards, and you can tell it's frozen. And somebody in the back, the kitchen in a Friday, as I was imagined, is just 12 microwaves.
I'm pretty confident about that. One time I went in there and I ordered something and it came out half frozen. So I think yeah.
I don't know. But here's the thing too. So I often have this thing where it's like, okay, I like pretentious buffoonery. I like foams. I like paying way too much for like sea urchin and shit like that. But I also really love Five Guys. So I think there's a time and a place for really good shitty food. This is neither. It's neither like they haven't elevated any of this stuff. It's just mediocrity across the board. And I think that's what bothers me most.
I'm happy to see them go. I think your title for the second headline is apt. And let's move on. Enough of this.
Apt. Okay, one more thing. This is more of a personal thing that bothers me. Check your goddamn bag. Okay, this was an editorial about this woman who's very bothered by super heavy carry-ons. So she said, we've all seen these passengers struggling to get a big bag into the overhead bin. They stand in the aisle. They hold everybody up. Sometimes they ask for help. And then as soon as the plane lands, everybody stands up. And inevitably, somebody has a bag 3 rows back. They're asking for help. It's just a goddamn nightmare. Then she says a lot of people do it because airlines started charging for checked baggage, which is true 15 years ago. I don't care. I got the $50. Then she says that some people have an irrational fear that they're going to lose their luggage. I don't fly that often these days, but I have lost luggage. As a matter of fact, I went to Vegas in the winter. I'm from Massachusetts, so I was dressed for winter. I show up to Vegas where it's 115. I got pants on and I'm miserable, and they don't get their luggage till the next day. So I don't think how irrational that is. I mean, it's rational in my. Once again, it could be lying with statistics. I just think this plays into the whole absurdity of an airport in general, and that's why I put these prices down here. Like the audacity for JFK and LaGuardia to charge $5 for a kind bar after tax. And what are they? 12 for a thing of Advil. People are sleeping on the floor. You can get a drink at 6 a.m. A bag of chips costs $18. Like, what the fuck is going on at airport?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, if you can do it, then do it.
They got you over barrel. You're there. You can't leave.
Right.
Whatever.
There's nothing you can do. Like, you can't like bring your own alcohol onto the plane. So you're going to pay $12 for a tiny little shot of bourbon,
Here's the other thing about drinking on a plane. I want to do it, but I also don't want to get up to go to the bathroom. That's a real issue with me in general. The proximity to the bathroom and the amount of, I don't like to inconvenience people, which is why I never bring anything on the plane. I don't need to bring.
You're the most inconvenient person I've ever met in my entire life.
Very convenient. I'm very convenient. I know. What you're doing now is you have heuristics in your head about somebody who's this pretty, and you go, he must love inconveniencing people.
You're right. That's what it is. That is exactly right. Thank you for sorting that up. I am doing a lot of flying these days, and also recently I decided to stop playing the piano so much so I could learn how to play the ukulele. Why? Because you can take a ukulele and you can put it on your back, and you
can't check a piano. Have you ever tried?
You can't. And I don't want to check a ukulele either. But what happens is, so now you got your little carry-on suitcase. You might have your computer bag and your ukulele. Well, that's 3. And so you end up having to check something. So I spent a couple of years checking all the time. And I want you to know that it's not as bad as one thinks. It's pretty convenient. I mean, yeah, there's a little bit of a delay, but on the front end of it, you walk into that airport, you give somebody else your bag, and you're like naked. You can do whatever you want in that airport.
Feels good. You're agile,
Yeah. Then check this out. Like, everyone else is worried all the time about trying to get the earliest board. Nope. I'm the last person on the plane, because I just show up on that plane. I put my bag in there, and it's great. And then I get out. Everyone's running around. I'm like, hey, man, not bad. It's going to take a little bit of time to arrive anyway. I just build in the extra 15 minutes. I never lost a bag except once. And it was at LaGuardia when I was living on Shoreline, Connecticut, like 2.5 hours. And so those losers had to bring it 2.5 hours to my house.
That's the thing too. Wherever you are, they'll bring it. They had to bring it to the goddamn hotel. Like, it's great. Here's the other thing too, is I don't, like one of those, Warren Zevon said when asked for advice when he was dying on the Dave Letterman show, he said, enjoy every sandwich. I think the time, like when I can leisurely stroll to the baggage carousel and then just hang out, wait for my bag, that's an enjoy every sandwich moment. I survived the flight. I'm there. Just went to the bathroom. I'm relieved. And now I get like 10 minutes where I can just fucking hang out, wait for my bag. And then the bag comes and you're all excited. It's just, I don't know. It's much better than the anxiety of, oh my God, am I going to have room on the plane? Am I going to be able to get it up here? Am I going to be able to get it down? It's just check it. Just check it. Yeah. Valet the car. It'll show up at the end. Yeah.
Geez. You just like brought a Warren Zevon sadness to me. I feel so like I really miss, anyway.
Yeah.
No further comment. Yeah, I'm sad now though.
Well, okay. I will say this about Zevon. Same thing with like Tom Petty. They died like way past their prime. So it wasn't like we were going to get okay. The Wind is a great album, but like I don't think he had more of those in him. So it's when artists like die at 27, you're like, fuck, we could have had more Nirvana albums. We could have more Jimi Hendrix. If somebody dies at 70, you're like, well, you gave all you could give.
Thank you for not allowing me to have sadness about the death of Warren Zevon. Continue.
Don't read his book, because I'm a huge Zevon fan, and after I read his book, I hated him. He's a giant piece of shit. Great music, though.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, now's the portion of the show where we get to know the CEO of the Pacific Ocean, the whole ocean. So these are your favorite bands today. I knew you're going to be a pain in the ass about this, and I'm sure it floats around. And these are always your favorite bands, but they were 2 days ago. What's up?
That was like 2 days ago when I told you my favorite bands.
Have they changed since then? Or are you still good with this?
All right, well, let's go through what I loved 2 days ago.
Daniel Lanois, Canadian. Right. Yeah, well, listen. So he worked with Brian Eno. He produced the Joshua Tree and Octung Baby, which is pretty fucking weird. Big into the ambient music. Yes. 7 Grammys. And I had no idea who this guy was. This goes back to this thing. Like, if any normal person had given me this list, I would have said you're a pretentious douche. But since you're a musician and you're smart, this list makes sense. This is one of those like this must make sense thing. Let me just say one more thing before we talk about Lanois.
Yeah,
I said this yesterday on the show because somebody had Van Halen on, so I watched the Eddie Van Halen Frankenstrat YouTube video where he sort of put it together. I don't play music. it was impressive to me because he is obviously a musical genius, but I would appreciate it more, I'm sure, if I played an instrument. I would get it. You're a musician. I think you get these guys certainly more than I do, or anybody else.
I guess I'm not like a great musician, but I am a musician, and I do understand like something about music. Music is it's okay though for people who aren't musicians to have to be deeply connected to music, right?
I think they're deeply connected in a way. Yes, obviously, but if you play, I think you get it more. See, that sucks. Yeah, well, Petty, I don't know. He was a heroin addict in his 70s. I mean, that $150 was a gamble.
What do you want to know about Daniel Lanois? I mean,
I want to know why you like him, how it came to be that you liked him, because I listened to some of the stuff and I wasn't like, oh yeah, this is well, I like ambient. I like what I would call ethereal bullshit, and that's what I like. Pink Floyd, Bon Iver. I like floaty nonsense. He's not quite floaty nonsense, but if you do some of the ambient stuff, it's almost there. That's my take on it.
So there's an amazing documentary, self-produced, called Here Is What Is. And it is named after an album called Here's What Is. And in it, he's got a lot of the people that he's made music with, from Brian Eno to Bono and U2 and lots of folks that are in there. And what you learn in this movie is you sort of watch how one of his songs comes together, whether it's him playing or whether he's producing for somebody else. But this album is more about like his work. He is an absolute genius. He's like literally, he stands behind the mixing board and uses the mixing board like an instrument. And so he's putting a song together, right? So he might have captured not just 16, but like 32 tracks, like a ton of different tracks of music. And you're never going to hear all of them. He's bringing them in and out. So there's just a guitar piece that's rhythmic that's going, and it's going the whole time, but you're not hearing it because he's bringing it in and out. And so he's bouncing these tracks down into different takes. I find his music to be spiritual, said the atheist. Like, it connects with me in a level that is so deep and powerful. And also, there were just a couple of years back there, I was doing a ton of international traveling, and there was something about being on a plane for 6-7 hours overnight, putting him into my ears for all of those hours, and the essence of that music got compiled into something that I am. So for those reasons, I really love him. He's also this like twangy Quebecois guy who sometimes writes in French, sometimes in English, and he's behind like all of the like that U2 sound. That's just crazy, something right? Created, right? Like, it's him. And so he's just, and my wife and I've seen him live once or twice. He's just absolutely out of control good. The other thing about him that's amazing is his drummer. Brian Blade is like the best drummer. And when you watch how Daniel Lanois takes Brian Blade and puts that together in all these different songs, one of his most popular songs is a song called The Maker, which I'm sure everyone would recognize if we were to play it right now. And you really hear the excellence that is Brian Blade's drumming as Daniel Lanois is bringing you through that song. Did you ever see the movie Sling Blade?
Yes.
Yeah. So he's buddies with Billy Bob, and Billy Bob asked him to do all the music for that movie.
Oh, see, he's one of these guys that you've probably heard a million times, but you don't know, or maybe you do, but I don't think he's not a name. He's not John Lennon.
Yeah, no, because I figured I could give you things like that, but it would be more boring.
I've talked about the Beatles 800,000 times, so I'm glad that you didn't do that.
They're my favorite.
Okay, well, I'm glad you put Lanois. Have you seen Count Me In, the documentary on drumming on Netflix?
No.
Oh my God, it's unbelievable. I don't, once again, this is one of those things, I know nothing about music, but you watch Count Me In, and I think Dave Grohl had something to do with it. He has something to do with a lot of musical documentaries, just like Sound City. Have you seen Sound City? There's so many good music documentaries, but Count Me In was brilliant. I've never seen anybody compliment Ringo as much as they did in Count Me In.
Really? So, Are you sure it was brilliant?
What?
Are you sure it was brilliant?
No. I know nothing like drumming. I just think it sounds like somebody beating on a thing. But if you are a drummer, I'm sure you could pick things up. That's one of the things.
You check out that movie Whiplash then?
Yeah, that was weird.
I absolutely loved that movie. I
thought it was good too. I could have done without the drum at the end where it like purposely fucks him over. I'm like, just the drumming. The pattern of the drumming is enough for me. You know?
There was there was a short take of that. That was like a 12-minute version of that or 15-minute version of that. And it was really good. Everybody wanted more. So they made the movie. And I agree. They overcomplicated it. They didn't have to do that whole last.
Yeah, it was just enough about the passion behind about perfection. That would have been enough. It was like when they just forced in a love story because that's what you're supposed to do in movies. Like that added. That was stupid. But back to the spiritual thing about being an atheist. I don't like that they get to the non-secular among us. They get to monopolize spirituality, because if you've ever done psilocybin or floated in a sensory deprivation tank, even as an atheist, you feel something, some sort of fifth dimension feeling or something. It doesn't have to be God. It could just be a thing that is inexplicable, which is what it is. You don't have to give it a name.
Yeah.
Spirituality is something, I don't know.
Can't say any more than that. You've expressed perfectly my point of view about spirituality,
as I often do. All right, let's talk about these fellas.
Well, so now we're looking at the Pat Metheny group, which varies a lot. But the thing that I love about this group is the hair, obviously. Look at the hair.
I mean, that's particularly why I pulled this out. Like, there was a time and a place when a rock band looked like a rock band, and this, well, except for the guy in the back. I don't know what he's doing here, but the rest of them, yeah.
So this isn't really a rock band. I mean, Pat Metheny
it's not.
It's jazz.
I know.
It's hard jazz. And the thing that I love the most about it is the guy behind Pat Metheny to our right. It would be over his left shoulder. That like very, very young looking dorky guy. His name is Lyle Mays.
Okay.
Lyle Mays is, in my view, the best piano player of all time. Not because he's technically the best, but he's way up there. It's just he has a certain sound. Is there a way that we could play something, or is that out of the
I don't have the rights. I don't have the rights to that. I'll get sued by the Metheny band.
Oh, I see. Well, I encourage all of you to go on to Spotify so that the Metheny band can make their 10th of a cent for your play, and go listen to this band. Let me just quickly make a recommendation for you. If you'll,
while you do that, do you know who Rick Beato is?
Rick Beato?
Yeah.
Should I?
Yes, he has 4.61 million subscribers on YouTube. He's an older guy, and he interviews musicians, like everybody. He has a Lanois interview, and he has a Metheny interview. He says, and this guy, without exaggeration, I know this word is overused, literally has interviewed everybody in the music industry. He said, this interview was 5 years in the making. Pat is my favorite guitarist and biggest influences. And this is a guy that's talked to everyone in Zeppelin who's alive, and the remaining Beatles, and like the Who, like just everybody. So
I have heard of him. He's wonderful. And I've heard a couple of his interviews with people. And now I'm going to have to listen to these two interviews. So go check out a song like James. Can I say that without you getting in trouble?
Yeah, sure. James, yeah.
Pat Metheny group, or Are You Going With Me? Or if you really want a great one, it's Phase Dance. And just wait for that piano solo, and your socks will light on fire.
Okay. I will say this about jazz. I think jazz is for smart people. I don't think I'm too dumb for jazz. I think a lot of people are too dumb for jazz. I think you have to understand music to really enjoy jazz. I think you can listen to it and not, but to really get it, I think probably, right? There's not going to be into it. You can say yes.
I don't know if that's right. I think that jazz is such a big thing, and there's certain kinds of jazz that you really do have to be smart or understand musically what's happening. This band, it's not like that. This is music that lifts spirits. Again, it's like, it really gets you. Check out Phase Dance. That's a pretty iconic one. And just like, don't try to, I see what they've done there. Just like connect with the emotions that you're feeling as you're listening to it. I do think it's accessible to everybody, even you.
Do you think I should eat a bunch of mushrooms before to make me feel, to really get it?
I would always recommend that you eat a bunch of mushrooms before, but you don't have to. Like, you can do this totally, just eat your Wheaties that morning.
Wheaties. I'm more of a, what I like is Honey Bunches of Oats. Oh my God. Honey Bunches of Oats is unbelievable. You don't like it? I
just don't eat cereal.
I don't either, but if I was going to, I could eat an entire box of almond Honey Bunches of Oats.
I got to tell you, I've never tried almond Honey Bunches of Oats.
It's gonna blow you away. It's the Pat Metheny band of, like, it's so approachable. Also, did you know that they've won 20 Grammys? 20?
I know.
How does anybody win 20? Tom Brady wins 7 Super Bowls, and that's incredible. But 20 Grammys? That's a lot of Grammys.
You are so well researched. Like this is called unscripted, and I just showed up. Like, okay, I'm going to show up and talk to this guy Eric Ryan, who I used to know. Yeah. But like you are on top of things that I should be on top of.
Oh, that's what I do. You know why? Because I like to appear intellectually superior to my guests. You're a tough one, but I'm going to do it.
You're winning. You're winning.
Well, listen, you went to MIT and I have a TED talk about genomic. Blah. Yeah, but I know they won 20 Grammys. So what's up now?
It's just a fact, though, Eric. It's just a fact. Now, these guys are the baddest of the bad. I tried. Okay, their pictures online don't do them justice because it's a constant rotating. Like they're always putting people in. So, but this is because I watched a bunch of the YouTube videos because I don't give a fuck about funk, but listening to funk covers of songs is objectively a good time. So, and the keyboardist is the CEO of Patreon. So it's like he doesn't have to be doing this. It's pretty well off. He does. He has to be doing it because it is so fat funky. The best thing that they've ever done, maybe two. One is they did a cover of Crazy, Gnarls Barkley. Please check that out. The other thing that's absolutely with Theo Katzman, I think it's the best song I've ever heard. It's that Billy Joel song, "I Love You Just the Way You Are."
Oh, see, I didn't watch that one. I watched I Believe in a Thing Called Love by The Darkness, which is I think one of the finest songs of all time, and that chick killed it. I listened to Hit Me Baby One More Time, which was funny. I listened to a bunch of them last night. It's great. I've never heard of them. Yeah, and they're all super understated as musicians. No one tries to steal the show. The thing about funk is all about space. And when you're in a band, I don't think you can hear my piano. You can't hear that, right? I heard darn it. Okay, so you want to be right. You want to be doing that, but with funk, no, you're just going like. It's just funky. Just little things like that. You got to stay away all the time. Your whole thing is like, just stay away. You're barely tickling it a little bit. You're not overdoing it on any of the notes. So these are all world-class musicians. When it's time for them to solo, they will melt your face. But their whole game is, no, I'm just going to stay in what we call the pocket. Scary pocket. I see. Scary pockets, yeah. It occurred to me, not that we know each other super well, but when I was watching them and I saw, we're Facebook friends, so I see you play a bunch of music. I thought fucking Resnick would love being in Scary Pockets. I would. Wouldn't that be a thing? I've tried to start a Scary Pockets down here in Charleston, but there's nobody. Scary Pockets, Sammy. Scary Pockets. Go to their YouTube page because they cover, 1,000 songs, and they're not parody covers. They're done really, really well, and they changed the arrangement. Like "Hit Me Baby One More Time" doesn't really sound like "Hit Me," and they did "I Want It That Way" with a guy who was very enthusiastic. Like they just crush pop, right? Really poppy, well-known songs. Yeah, they absolutely. And Sammy, I will tell you, you got to listen to "Just the Way You Are," Scary Pockets. I got to "Just the Way You Are" too. Yeah. Watch the YouTube video because it's really their performance is so great. It will make you happy, and you will sing that song for the rest of the day. It's hard not to be happy because their passion comes through. They're all having a really great time. The singers always crush. And it's conceptually awesome. And then you just have a guy who's filthy rich, loving the shit out of playing the keyboards. Yeah. Look, I'm not sure that he's filthy rich. Like CEOs. It's not actually. He only made $5 million off the deal, but listen, I'll fucking take $5 million. Yeah, it's not filthy. It's rich. It's rich enough. Yeah, it's good, but he's clean. Look, he smells nice. I bet the beard probably has some crumbs in it. The beard has little honey bunches of oats. I can tell he's a honey bunches of oats eater. Yeah, you can see the milk there. Okay, so now it's like movies. Favorite movies? How can you? Whatever. So I don't like my choices because it's like the Beatles. Everyone would say that. Nothing more to say except you got to keep hope alive. Hope matters. Yep. And this is the most beautiful movie that's ever been made, even though I've seen it 40 million thousand times. Everybody has because it's the only thing on TBS and TNT. But it was the #1 movie on the IMDb 250. It deservingly so. Right. It's the same. So this movie, sort of like the Beatles, lives on this list. But I can understand because it's a love story but it's not, there's no homoeroticism or anything. It's just two dudes really fucking like each other. There's no explosions. There's no nudity. There's no gratuitous violence. It's just a beautiful fucking story in a time that seems to resonate with people. And it's like big moment after big moment after big moment. The beers. on the roof after they thing, and like how that made them. What'd you say about my wife? And he's dangling him over, and then he plays the opera, and he goes, nobody had any idea what was going on, but they were all in stunned silence. And there's just it's like it's like many moments of. That's why I love Billy Madison. It's many big moments stacked on top of each other.
Totally love it. Well said. Nothing more to add.
It's also in the holy trinity of Stephen King non-horror movies that I don't think he gets enough credit for, which is Stand By Me, The Green Mile, and Shawshank. Those 3 movies are fucking incredible.
Yeah. All great. I love them all as well.
Can I say the last thing I always say about this movie too? It's the only time in the history of cinema that test audiences have been right, because originally the movie ended with him getting out of the thing in the rain and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, well, what about Red? And they're like, what about Red? He's if I can stay the rest of his life in prison. So they went back and shot the thing where he gets out, finds the money, goes down, and then does the drone shot with like, if you didn't have that, that's
cool. I didn't know that. That is really cool. And that really does make the movie, right? Like it's that's the thing that's the arc of hope again. Like it bend towards the thing that you're hoping for happening,
Sometimes it takes millennia or 2 hours in a movie. The other thing, like I recently, because it's always on TBS and TNT, I watched the beginning. I'm pretty sure he committed those murders. Like that was a dead to rights case. Who else could have done it?
Yeah, right. Like there isn't really anybody else. It makes sense. You would too. I know you would.
Of course. Because he was like, isn't it convenient that we dragged for 3 days and couldn't find a gun? And he was like, no, I find it decidedly inconvenient.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. This is where the absurdity starts to jump in. This is an absurd movie. There's a talking cheeseburger that plays Eddie Van Halen's Frankenstrat.
This movie is just based in a time, and all these humans, these faces, like when you actually like watch this movie all over again, you can't believe that you're watching it for the first time. It's hilarious from the racing, the Korean brothers who are constantly like racing to the I want my $2. Like just it's a love story inside of a skiing drama, inside of like a weird like twisted thing where like the sort of the heavier guy in green and like there's like these strange undertones of like sexual terror, and then you got Booger wearing the top hat. Just
Booger's great.
That's it.
There's also that great scene. There's also that great scene where he's in a trash thing, and 2 black guys they just threw away a perfectly healthy white boy. Great. That's great. So 1985. How old were you then? You're in your mid 40s. When does this movie come out for you?
I was 14, and so all these actors seemed like old. They were like big kids to me, right? Like they were
14, man. That's my Billy Madison. Like you need absurdist, goofball, the talking cheeseburgers, the giant penguin. Like at 14, there better be one of these movies that comes out for you, because it's going to inform the way you view comedy for the rest of your life.
And I'll tell you, you're absolutely right. Like it was the first movie of its kind that sort of went between this like make-believe fantasy world full of cartoons and like, there were these constant like moments where he would just space out and because he was an artist, like a graphic artist. So he would be drawing something into life, and all of a sudden you were there. And that interplay between the fantasy and what was really going on in its life, that was so creative for its time that it really just caught everyone who watched it. There's tons of funny things that are happening in the movie, but there is also this breakthrough of that interplay between these two worlds that I think really launched the movie.
It's an absurdist classic. I think Kierkegaard would enjoy it a lot if we could dig him up. And I don't know how that works, but I think him and Camus, the whole all the boys,
he'd be better off dead though, I think, than watching this movie.
Okay, this is one I haven't seen, but I did watch a lot of scenes from it. Being there, Peter Sellers was nominated for an Academy Award for this. Did you know? He's very upset that he didn't win.
Yeah, he was very upset. Look, this movie is just a masterpiece. And for those of you who haven't seen it, what's wrong with you?
I don't know.
It's the story of a guy who's simple, who has some sort of learning disability. Maybe he's kind of like autism spectrum disorder or something like that. And he has gracefully lived his entire life as the gardener of some very wealthy man. And this is Peter Sellers' character. His name is Chauncey.
Yes.
And Chauncey, his sponsor, passes away one day, and he has to go figure out what he's going to be when he grows up. And it's the story of how we can be so reverent about somebody that we'll begin to believe anything that could possibly be that's good about them, in spite of their behavior. He's a simple guy. He's not an evil guy at all. He's a very kind guy. But because he speaks in riddles, whenever he's asked something like, what do you think of the president's policy on whatever? He'll say, well, the world is like a garden. Sometimes, in some seasons, things must die. In other seasons, things must grow. And everyone he never actually says anything at all. It's all metaphor about garden, because that's the only language that he speaks. And in the end, he gets appointed to be the next president of the United States. He actually walks on water as
that's right at the end. Yes, that's like metaphorical, right? Or something very Jesus-y. Yeah, I watched, so there was like people constantly looking for deeper meanings in the simple things that he's saying, and then working it into policy and speeches. It's 90. Okay, so I always pull the critic scores and the audience scores from Rotten Tomato. This has a 95 critic and 92 audience. Universally beloved.
Universally beloved. It's a great movie. I just watched this movie with Molly, with my wife, and she did not like it until we started to approach the end, and the way that it ended really caught her. And she's like, "Wow, that was an amazing movie. Let's watch it again." And I was like, "No, yeah."
I'm always fascinated by reading the YouTube comments under movie trailers and movie scenes, because this movie really affected a lot of people. One person said there's not a wasted scene. It's like a very tight.
Yeah.
Okay. We only have 9 minutes left, so we got to get the books. Because listen, this is a smart show. This is what we talk about. Okay,
and it's timely.
Okay, this guy. Well, listen, this is sort of cheating, but every damn thing written by Isaac Asimov. So you're gonna have to narrow this down a little bit. Do you want to just do a vague synopsis of the man's work? Sum it all up.
He's so good. This guy, apart from the big chomp and sideburns,
that's the most appealing part.
They come from a time and place. This man really invented a whole class of science fiction. And he's the guy responsible for The Foundation. If you've ever watched that on Apple TV, there's a wonderful series that he wrote about that, which is basically the story of the Roman fall, but taking place galactically, some hundreds of thousands of years. I can't quite remember how many years in the future. We've expanded galactically, but this empire that we've built is falling. And it's about a man who's trying not to save it from peril, but to minimize the interregnum between this empire and the next one, where there will be life and civilization and art again, down from 1 million years to 10,000 years. It's wonderful because what he does in this series, which happens over an arc of time, thousand or more years, collides with some of his other series. You probably also watched the movie I, Robot, and he invented this whole notion of robots. That's what this guy did.
He invented the term robotics, for Christ's sakes. I mean, that's
like literally that's what this guy did. But what's so cool is he wrote books over the course of his life, and every now and then they would relate back to each other. But the later on he got in his years, the more he had a desire to connect all these stories in this grand universe. And so there's actually an order that you can read these books in that's like chronological, and you can see how all these things are coming together. And some of your favorite characters from the very beginning, when civilization is just expanding out of the earth, this robot named Daniel Oliva, who's like really he's like conscious, one of the first ones that's very, very human. He's still around like the hundreds of millions of years or whatever later, as the universe is like dying of star death. He's still there. And so you get this wonderful arc through characters that you love. And it's a testament to this guy's prolific nature. He wrote so much. Now you only have 4.5 minutes to close this up, so I'll stop.
Oh, so you don't have to. We can go beyond. The thing about returning characters, I think that's a very interesting, like, we all love that. The dumb version of this is Spider-Man 3, where all 3 Spider-Men were together and all us fucking nerds lost our minds. But this idea, in the Star Wars universe kind of does the same thing. And like it's prominent things like professional wrestling. We love when things come back. I think that's like it could be a life-death thing. Like, we will return. There's hope. I don't know what that is.
Maybe it's just like when you go see your favorite band, you want to play the old stuff.
It could be that, like familiarity, comfort. Yeah, I think it plays into it. All right, listen, we could talk for more time, but so you said you weren't exactly sure. I just did teaches chess. I don't fucking know. Is this the one? You love chess? You said Bobby Fischer tactics, and I was like, well, what's more tactical than the guy teaching you chess?
I think this is the one. Yeah, so I'm an avid chess player. I play chess every day. I usually play like 1-minute games. I was in my like little skill level, I was the Massachusetts Blitz champion back in the late 80s or 90s one year. I love chess. I find that there's all sorts of stories that I can tell you about how chess and life are related, particularly like in the world of strategy. It teaches you a lot. But also, what's so cool about it is that all the strategy in the world that you can deploy on a chessboard can be blown open by a tactic that you just can't necessarily see, and then someone else sees it and your whole thing is destroyed. And this man here was the guy who really invented tactical chess playing, and he got so good at it. And the way that this man got so good was when he was like 10, between the ages like 10, 12, 13, he would play himself over and over and over again. He would make the best possible move he could see for white, and then he would go over to the black pieces and he'd make the best possible move for black. Now, he went crazy in his later years. He's a Jew who became an anti-Semite and a conspiracy theorist, and but he went crazy because he spent like years of his childhood trying to beat himself up in chess. And this book, if you want to go up a level in chess, it shows you all the basic tactical things that you need to do in order to destroy the people that used to be difficult for you. And there's just a few patterns that he teaches you. For me, this was a breakthrough in my chess journey.
Did you ever read the sequel to this, which is Bobby Fischer Teaches Candyland? Did you ever play that? No, it's very. I was a New England Candyland champion.
Are you really? It's a much more complex game, Candyland, and it's like Go. I don't want to go. This is as far as I can. This is the extent of the complexity I can eat.
Right. Chess is for dumb people. Candyland is for smart people. But I don't want to bring that up on the show. That's embarrassing to you. But right. I did watch some reviews of this book on YouTube, and none of them are particularly good. But I don't know. It's idiots talking about chess. No one that was particularly good at chess was talking about this. But it does, like, the fact that you can, because somebody said you got to like turn the book because he's showing illustrations. The idea that you could sort of like look at a strategy, remember what somebody's going to do and where you have to go. Like, chess is tough, man. Like, there's more. It's like football in a sense that it's the days leading up to the game that help you win on game day, because it's so complex. You got to know what the safety's doing, what the corner, the D line, who's, you know what I mean? And that's it's very strategic. It's no Candyland, but it's very strategic.
It's emotional. I find that it's emotional. Like, you spend so much. I'll tell you a story about chess. Okay. So I used to play competitively long format. I only play short games now because I get too emotionally attached if I play long games.
Okay.
So like long games, like 90 minutes per side, and you have a clock. So your side of the clock is ticking down when it's your turn to move. The moment you make your move, you slam the clock, and that starts your opponent's clock. So 90 minutes each side for the whole game. That's a ton. I prefer 1 minute each side. 1 minute each side is better. It's like whack, whack, you're hitting back and forth with the music, right? 90 minutes, I'm sitting there and playing this 8-year-old girl with her father standing behind her. Yep. She is the most adorable little girl I have ever seen. And she is kicking my fucking ass in, absolutely destroying me. And at the end, I'm like, good game. And I look up to her father, and he's like, I'm sorry.
I know. That's why, so I stopped playing video games as soon as people started connecting to the internet, because the last thing I need is some 8-year-old beating me and calling me a bitch. Like, I just wanted to play hockey. Yeah. I don't need this in my life.
I'm the same. I don't play those things anymore because the 8-year-olds are always better.
I know. And it's sort of embarrassing. I think it's their pliable minds. Is there a lot of shit talking in chess? Do you ever because you know what I like a lot is beer pong, and the shit talking beer pong is so satisfying. But does anybody ever talk? They don't, right?
Like that, but that's what I'm saying is, like, chess is emotion, and the way that you feel about your position is the way that the position is. By the way, that's what we do at the Pacific Institute is we focus on what you believe about your reality, because that drives your behavior. And so, like, it really is a game where if the emotional roller coaster of any game is so dramatic. You're constantly like, oh, this is over. I just smoked this player. And then you're like, oh my God, no, not that.
All into a trap. You didn't even know it.
Yeah. And then you break out of it again. It's just like that. It's very exciting. Did you ever watch the show Queen's Gambit?
I watched the first couple episodes. Yeah, it was good.
The first couple, you can't stop watching.
I have no capacity for long-term drama watching. I don't know what it is. Like, even everyone's Breaking Bad's the greatest. I watched the first season. I was like, I get the rest of it. He's making meth. He's almost going to get caught. Then he's not. And he's almost going to, and at the end he does. So am I right? I mean, she probably wins something at the end of Queen's Gambit, I would venture to say.
I'm so
pattern recognition. That's what I do.
No, but everything's just a pattern, but it's the details, it's little eddies that fall off of patterns that make lives interesting.
I know. All I really watch on TV is basketball, football, and the Great British Baking Show. Those are the only things I like. Oh no, I watch America's Test Kitchen too, because I like to know which brand of cumin is best. Is that a good segue to this?
Yeah.
Girdle. It's not pronounced how you think it would be. Girdle Eschenbach. Okay. First of all, this book is way above my pay grade. I know that. I got a little obsessed. Now, the reviews on this book on YouTube are very good, unlike the last one.
Yeah.
Somebody said, so somebody like leafed through it, and I get, structurally it's weird. They go, do not buy it digitally. He does a lot of things on the printed page that are interesting, a lot of illustrations, all this other shit. I know you're going to talk about it, but what I found very interesting about one of the reviewers is he said about this book that I have felt about other books, but I haven't been able to articulate it, is he said it's thought stopping, meaning that you read something and you got to put it down and think about it for a little while. That concept, I think a lot about, like Kurt Vonnegut does it to me all the time. But I never thought stopping. That's what it is. You've read something and you can't just go on to the next sentence. You got to sit with it for a little while. And this seems to be one of those books.
Yeah, it's amazing. This book. So I was trained in computer science as an undergraduate, and I did a graduate degree in computer science before another one in business. And I'm not talking about software programming. I'm talking about computer science, which is the science of computing. And the science of computing leads you to all sorts of really weird places where, if there is a God, she exists in there. So I'll give you an example. One of the things that you'll learn about if you were to read this book is this notion of a thing called the incompleteness theorem. And in computer science, we do a lot of counting of things. And not just to count, we count infinity a lot, because there's different sizes of infinity. There's different shapes of infinity. And turns out some infinities are bigger than others. So we can show, for instance, that if you have any mathematical system, inside of that system, there are statements which are true that cannot be proven. I can't tell you which ones they are, but the reason why we can say this is because we count the infinite number of statements that can be made, and we count the infinite number of proofs of statements. And it turns out that the infinite number of statements is bigger.
That hurts my head. Does that hurt your head? That's weird, right?
Here's another thing that's whacked. So have you ever heard of the halting problem? The question is this: can you write a program that will take as its input a program and tell you whether it stops?
Yeah.
And the answer, of course, is
no.
Why would you say that?
Because I'm dumb.
All right, good. As long as we've established that, I've won the match. Now,
you've won.
Here's the essence of the answer. Really, the only way to do that is to simulate it. So you start running the program. As the program, you run the program. We actually have things like operating systems. That's what they do. They're programs that run other programs. And how does the operating system know whether the program ever halts? Well, if it stops, then it knows. But if it doesn't, it might vary on the very next run, right? So as a general case, you can't actually know this. There's no way to say. So there's all of these things that result from that. Different kinds of, I love all that stuff, because for me, when you get into the infinite and mathematical constructs, then you look around at our universe, which appears like it might also be infinite. It's to suggest that if we want to sort of understand an origin story, right, a true book of Genesis for us, it's probably by going deeper into this eternal golden braid that these folks have developed.
Do you think it's knowable? Like my whole thing is, you can take the world's smartest dog and it still can't do 3 times 3. I think that maybe at some point it's just so complex because, again, like it's just synapses in our brain that are trying to understand this very minute, very tiny things, trying to understand the infinite. It just almost seems impossible to me as a dum-dum.
There's a theory, right, that says that like you can't. It's kind of like trying to escape the simulation, right? You can't escape the simulation if you're inside of it. And that may very well be. And I don't know. I mean, like I don't know enough about it. I'm such a layperson about it. So I don't know enough about it to say more than just let's keep trying to know it as hard as we can. Let's keep funding people who are trying to know it.
Right.
And so far because we keep on making advances. We keep on discovering new stuff. And when we bump into a wall and we don't do anything more, then maybe we can answer the question. But the question you asked is a version of the halting problem. When do we stop trying to know things?
Yeah.
Well, like, there is no answer to that. You just keep on going forever. So I think it is knowable. At least I know that we're going to continue to try forever while we exist to know.
Well, especially now that we don't have to farm for potatoes. We get a lot of time to sit around. Some of us do, back to specialization, but a lot of us have time to just sit around, and that's why grain crops changed humanity forever. So I did watch a little bit about, there's a kid at MIT, I've fucking heard of it, that did a lecture series on this book. And I watched the first lecture and it was very good, but it was very late at night and I was a little drunk. But he said something about, how does self arise out of a thing that has no self? Because we're sort of just, we're fucking atoms and proteins that have no I, seemingly, but at some point it does because we do. And that's a weird thing. There's a lot of paradoxes from what I understand that are explored in this book.
Yeah, totally. And it sort of it wouldn't be an episode of whatever this episode is, Unscripted, if we didn't talk for a minute about ChatGPT, which is approaching the same sense of like, can't tell it apart from a human in a lot of places, in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It has the ability to appear like it has some sense of consciousness. Whether it does or not, I don't know. But this book gets into, can you program consciousness? Is that something that's possible? And one of the things that really disturbed computer scientists early on in the world of AI was this notion of, are we predetermined? And it's really only quantum mechanics which allows computer scientists to stay sane, because otherwise they look at it and they say, well, if it's purely deterministic, if it's all Newtonian, I can compute with a big enough computer absolutely everything that will ever happen, including every interaction inside of the molecules of your brain, and how you vibrate the air and how that impacts the air over there and cause somebody else to listen to some vibrations. And like, you could simply compute it all. There is no free will. Right?
Okay. So I have another show on YouTube called Damn Lies and Statistics, where I interview authors of nonfiction books. And I interviewed this guy who's a professor at the University of Dublin, I believe. It's all about the history of free will and the whole idea that is it predetermined, is it not? You want to hear my dumb theory that he thought maybe had some credence?
Yeah.
I'll tell you. So babies, I think the canary in the coal mine about free will is in babies, because babies up until the age of about 3 are purely, they cry, they want something. They can't intellectualize that you are separate from them. They just live in a nothing world. Then we develop physically a neocortex in the brain that allows higher thought. So my question is this: if everything's predetermined, why do we physically develop a part of our brain that allows for things like free will and choices and tastes and intellectualizing things are different than us? Why bake into a system something that would appear, because there's a point where we don't, and then there's a point that we do. So if it's all predetermined, why bother with this shit? That seems a little bizarre, doesn't it? Why, we're just going to find that as a clue that maybe it isn't predeterministic?
I mean, the whole neocortex thing, like, why do you sense that that's when you get free will? Isn't that just when you appear to have more agency and cognition and rational behavior based on your environment? I mean,
because you don't have it in the beginning, right? And then you physically develop a thing that allows you to make choices. Why in a system where we're just predetermined creatures that are fulfilling some sort of algorithm somewhere, bake into a system that at some point in our life, it appears that a thing develops that gives us choice? I just think the before and afterness of it just seems a little weird. If we're just like a robot doesn't in year 5 develop a choice to make decisions, right? It's always pre-programmed from day one.
Pre-programming, though, is sort of like we're pre-programmed as well in a certain way. And the thing that allows us to make decisions based on our environment, what I'm suggesting is that this kind of determinism, like the environment is an initial state and it changes in a way that's computable. if we live in a world where there's no free will, that now you suddenly have the ability to compute with this new neocortex how you should react to a threat in the environment or to something valuable in the environment. But like, we know how you're going to react. It's all it's just a series of interactions between small particles, and we just need a computer big enough to simulate it. Now, why does it start when you're 5 or whatever? Well, because that's the way that it's been predetermined, right? Like, that's
if it has been predetermined. Here's another thing too, though, about ChatGPT is like, I want to dismiss it because all it is what you put into it, but all we are is what the environment puts into us. Right? So my fault. So it goes back to the Nietzsche's existentialist view that there is no free will because I can only experience life as a 43-year-old white guy, having had my experience. At no point can I choose to experience it any other way. So it is just input in, input out, just like ChatGPT. So yeah, I don't know. Let's all just fucking kill ourselves. Is that what you want?
No, I actually think that we do have free will. I think that free will comes, or the lack of determinism comes from the randomness of the quantum world, and that there's sort of a randomization function built in to the interaction of all things, and that is where it comes from. I think that's a cool idea. I recently read this amazing paper about how we're starting to understand what sleep really is. Sleep is the tool that nature provides us, and everything with a brain is required to do this. It reduces the entropy in your brain. So over the course of a day, you gain all of this mess of information. You've taken the hot coffee and the cold cream and you've mixed them together, increasing entropy, losing information. And after a while, you have this like room temperature creamy soup. And sleep is the way in which your brain figures out how to separate all that stuff, which is such a cool notion, but it's a quantum physical notion. It really is, like down at the very bottom. And if we see ourselves as the particles that we're interacting in that way, I just get such a big hit out of that. I absolutely love that. I love everything about that concept. I'll send you the paper.
I'd love to read it. Dreams are so weird too, because everything in a dream is weird, but you don't think it's weird when you're in the dream. And also, you know, this theory about how you never see a cell phone in a dream. I think that's true. I've never seen a cell phone in a dream.
I never heard that, but now
think about it. You ever looking at your fucking phone? You look at your phone all goddamn day. You go into a dream state, never on a call, never looking at your phone. That's conceptually bizarre to me.
I mean, yeah, I maybe it's just
maybe dream me doesn't like porn as much as regular me. I don't know what it is. Yeah, there's gotta be.
It might be that. It might be that. And then there's people who say that they never dream. They're liars. I don't believe.
Well, I think you just don't remember. Isn't that, haven't we figured out that you just don't remember them in the morning or something?
Yeah, liars.
Liars. I used to dream it. So I'm not a big fan of weed. I'm holding out for medicinal cocaine. But when I used to eat sleepy time gummies, I did remember my dreams a lot more. So I don't know. I mean, there's going to be some sort of chemical explanation for that. I'll tell you this, bourbon at night doesn't make me remember shit.
No, bourbon at night doesn't do anything, except it's very inconvenient to your significant other because you're getting up and peeing all the time.
That's true. I just put to bed.
I thought you were very convenient.
I wear diapers as not to disturb her because I am. What do you think about that?
You're one of the men here in our country that wears diapers, aren't you?
I could be the only one. I wear, they're sexy though. They're like boxer brief diapers.
They're very fashionable. Moisture wicking. You got to send me the link.
I'll send you a box. I'm a shareholder. We went over, but do you want to do you want to do your elevator pitch now? You tried to work in the Pacific Institute earlier. You don't want to? No, nothing.
I mean, are there two people watching? Do you think, or?
So because I simulcast through all the social, the attribution's weird. So I don't know, but listen, there might be somebody who are, someone predetermined to buy your shit. You just got to tell them to do it, or you don't, I guess, because we're all living in a simulation.
All right, I'm gonna explain the thing that the Pacific Ocean does. And by the Pacific Ocean, I mean the Pacific Institute, which is actually based on the Atlantic.
The magazine?
Yeah, no, the ocean.
Oh, right.
So look, you know how like you created this thing called Unscripted?
Yes.
Before you created it, you probably thought about creating it.
Mm-hmm.
You thought about creating it and you didn't think it was a bad idea because you believed you could.
Right.
Now, if you didn't believe that you could, how far would you have gotten?
Well, not very far. I don't think I would have created it.
Right. So we act in accordance with with our beliefs, not the truth. We act in accordance with our world through our belief system.
Yeah.
Okay. We also perceive in accordance with our belief system. And that's the explanation for all of the political bubbles out here. I can't even see the content that's counter to my cultural beliefs.
Yes.
I can't even see them. I discount them. That's the essence of confirmation bias. So if we act in accordance with what we believe to be true, then shouldn't we be very mindful of what we believe?
Yes.
So what do we do if we have beliefs about our ability to cause some outcome that are not helpful? They're negative. The last time I tried this, I failed miserably, or I'm terrible at speaking publicly, or I'm just not a good looking person, or I stink at math. If those are your beliefs, then you are not going to try again. You're going to avoid math at all costs. You're going to not try to get a date to the prom, whatever that stuff is. So how do we get beliefs in the first place? Where do they come from, Eric Ryan, America's sweetheart?
Environment, self-esteem, past experiences,
Bingo.
the grand algorithm that controls our lives, all of them.
All that stuff. That's where beliefs come from. And so what's really going on there is we have like 50, 60, 70,000 thoughts a day. And the ones that we perseverate on become our beliefs. And the ones that we ignore, we ignore. And so what the Pacific Institute does is we work with humans. It's 100% humans. We don't work with animals, all humans. They're typically people who can afford the work that we do, but we have sort of entry-level things for individuals. We work largely with CEOs, with executives, with coaches of sports teams, etc., to help inventory their beliefs and to change how they believe their world is, giving them the most limitless beliefs that they can possibly find so that they act in accordance with them. And the way that we do that primarily, Dr. Ryan, is through a thing called self-talk. Have you ever spoken to yourself?
All day. You know why? Because I'm the most fascinating person I know.
Exactly. You say that, and it's actually true to you. And so what that does is that causes you to form a self-image that you are really funny and interesting. And I believe that too. So now I'm enabling your self-image. So what happens when you have a self-image like that? When it's time to perform, you perform in accordance with your self-image. And then after you've performed well in that way, you speak to yourself again. So there's this cycle of self-talk, be it positive or negative, that hones your self-image. And that is what drives you to perform as you assess your performance, more self-talk. And so often, if you go to a team of people and you're like, hey, let's go do this, or let's go try this, so they'll be like, yeah, but two people are like, that's the stupidest idea ever. They have that belief and they are going to limit your ability to get there. And so the idea is to get everyone speaking to themselves and each other in the same way as it relates to some goal. And that's how we blow it out of the water.
I feel like I just got some free Pacific Ocean and I appreciate it. There's a couple of things I want to add my own anecdotes here. I've always said that what's really dangerous in life is what you perceive to be normal. And I think this plays into like the cycle of poverty and shit like that. Like your normal is very dangerous because it's all that you can see. As soon as that wall breaks down, and sometimes you even reject what's not normal, even though it's better, just because normal is normal to you.
Yep.
The other thing is there's a certain populace that's about 80 times more likely to play Major League Baseball. You know who it is?
Men whose parents played baseball.
Yes, because they think they can. And that's true of like everything now. And that's fucking fascinating, right? I mean, I'm sure it has to do with fast twist muscles and everything else, but the belief is there. If your father did it, certainly you can do it. He's fucking doing it. That's your normal. And I think that plays out across the board.
Bingo. That's exactly what we do is we help people to find new normals because some of our normals are not helpful to us. Others are.
Yeah. Like my casual drinking problem seems normal, but until it kills me, I'm going to continue to believe that it is.
Yeah, I also share the casual drinking problem and the belief that I'm going to continue to do it until it tells me that, hey, you shouldn't do this anymore.
No one gives alcohol any credence. It's like so cool to hate alcohol. It's so cool not to drink and everything. Fuck off. Like it's just take the edge off. I'm not saying wake up in the morning and start drinking. At the end of the day, you have a few, you start talking stupid to another guy that's had a couple and you're like, this is unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, My thoughts on this have developed slowly over the course of my old age, but I generally am in agreement with you that there is a wave of folks that aren't drinking, and I think that's great. I don't judge them. I don't believe that I'm increasing broadly the country's healthcare costs by drinking the way that I do. I don't believe that I'm unavailable to the people who love me. They may or may not be being honest with me about that. So I do try to check in every now and then. And every now and then I do get maybe take it easy tonight. How about that?
But then you do, and it's fine.
I do, and it's fine. And so yeah, I think that like so many things, like live and let live, man.
Yeah. It's like people go, oh, you don't have to drink to have fun. Maybe not, but I have to drink to have fun with you because you're fucking boring. So I would appreciate the courtesy of you opening up a little bit and maybe saying something interesting instead of talking about traffic or your job or your kids, which I certainly don't give a shit about. You're a pet. No, you drink, you say some stupid shit, and you're like,
a little bit of judgment, and you think you're actually getting a little better. And those two things combined is what makes it so funny.
Beautiful. Chef's kiss. All right, listen, I mean, we went way over. Can I log off the live? Can you stay around the green room? Can we talk a little bit? I'm sure you're very busy. You got a whole ocean to take care of. But I appreciate you coming on. This was better than you thought it would be, right? I can tell.
This was. I actually had pretty high expectations for this because you're a funny guy. But you mostly reached them.
This is not what the Pacific Institute would do to me. You would talk me up and make me feel better about myself.
No, and actually, I really hope that no one who's interested in the Pacific Institute is watching this, because this is not my Pacific Institute persona, brother.
Why? You're an intellectually curious, smart fella who really likes music and movies and books. I mean, that's what everybody should be. We should be a tiramisu. We should, you know what I mean? Stop being a fucking cupcake and be a business guy. Stop it.
Well, thanks, Alex. I appreciate that.
Fuck off, Alex. I nailed this. I crushed it. See, my normal is being out of my mind. Baseless arrogance is my normal. So here we are.
Right. I'm aware, and I enjoyed it very much. Before we go, are there any stories from our childhood that we should tell, or no?
Are you talking about me and you being like hanging out together?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Well, listen, if you're concerned about your public persona, I do not. I don't care, but I'm doing this for you.
Yeah, well, let's just end the public.
And then we can talk about whatever we want. All right, listen, America, I might be back tomorrow. I don't know. The guest hasn't confirmed. We'll see. Anyway, enjoy your Wednesday.